And a lot of it, you get the sense, is not for him, because he obviously is not going to sit down and eat a human-sized cheeseburger. He's the kind of guy who can sit down and eat a whole cow. So, a lot of what you're seeing in the kitchen and the storeroom are there for humanoid visitors that Kefas deals with from time to time. There's also, inside of the keep, that is to say, inside of the second set of walls, a huge statuary. Most of the statues are giant-sized. And by giant-sized, I don't mean quite as big as Kefas, maybe 19, 20 feet tall. And they're of a form of giant that does not look anything like the fat, stupid, like sloping brow shape of the hill giant, nor of the more like regal and straight-backed of Kefas himself. All of the statues in the statuary are shrouded in desert robes, the kind like a turban. What do they call the thing that goes across the face that the guy in Final Fantasy II wears? I don't even know. They're dressed like traders would dress out in the desert, like a human merchant would dress. The guy that Orphan tried to say, "Oh yeah, we can totally protect you if we take you across the desert," he was dressed this way. But they're very clearly giants. They have giant proportions. Most of them are leaning on huge scimitars. The rest are leaning on quarterstaffs. So there's a statuary with maybe a dozen of these statues. There's an art gallery with art from all over the world on display, most of which in the form of huge murals and tapestries. Kefas is not paying... He's not going to purchase a portrait and hang on the wall. He's going to buy someone else's wall and hang it on his wall. He's got entire murals here. And one of the murals you see looks suspiciously like the Flumph artwork that you saw at Zrazak.
Well, he showed that to us anyway.
No, he showed you the tapestry of the three women. Mm-hmm. What I'm describing are the abstract swirls of Flumph paintings that you saw at Zrazak.
Gotcha.
Does that piece? I'm sorry, the swirl that looks like it's from Zrazak. Does that also look like it is a wall that he ripped off of somebody's wall and hung on his wall?
More specific, it looks like it was a cave wall. It looks like it comes from the... Look, you know, you were just there. It looks like it comes from the Underdark.
Fascinating.
The first day, after Kefas says to take your time, Gurgrog tells you that the Master is busy. He will reconvene the conversation at his convenience, and don't act out of line or she might kill you.
Okay.
So you all are basically given run of the keep for a little while.
I'm curious about these statuaries you were talking about.
Okay.
Are there any plaques or any indication of who these people are or how old these statues are?
There are not. Just the statues themselves.
And I'm guessing there's no one around to ask.
Gurgrog.
Will she, if I use Orphan to translate, will she tell me about them?
What do you ask?
Just if she knows anything about the history of the statues, since they appear to be they're giants that like we haven't seen too often.
She says yes, they are giants.
Does she add, "Don't touch them or I'll kill you"?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Are those are they Sorry, I'm stumbling over what I'm trying to say. Basically, are they? Do they represent anyone in particular? Are these old people from the keep, or?
She says they're giants made of stone.
Okay, thank you very much.
She has an intelligence of like 4, so don't be too hard
Gotcha.
on her.
No, that's fine. And Zook's definitely just okay. Thank you very much.
Gurgrog prepares meals for you guys whenever you want them, whatever you ask for. She never does it happily. Kefas does not come down yet, but he sends down word that Gurgrog is to make available to you any books from his library that you would like to study.
Ooh.
Yeah. Tarin will happily take him up on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What kind of material do you guys want to look through while you're waiting for him to come back?
Anything on the history, like really old history of Trennis.
Okay. What does Eldove want?
I want any books, particularly the stories told by the Sylvan Elves that he mentioned earlier, of the stories of how Trennis got cut off from all the other planes.
Eldove, what happens is Gurgrog places a book on the ground and opens it, and the book is too heavy for you to lift, but you can turn the pages yourself. It's a book of song and poetry, written by somebody long ago who was in contact with the Sylvan Elves. It's written in the language of the Sylvan Elves, in an archaic form of it that you understand, but only in as much as you would understand, say, reading Gawain the Green Knight in Old English. It's very difficult to get through. And it describes a lot of the legends and myths that you know are associated with Sylvan Elves, but it describes them in a contemporary way. It describes them as though the people who wrote this book saw them happen. As for the closing of the portals and how Trennis got cut off, not a lot of detail. It just says, one day the elves were free to walk back and forth between Trennis and the Feywild and the fields of Arborea, and such a great elven hero in the past, displeased such and such a great elven god, met a tragic end, and from that day forward, the doors were no longer open. After that, the elves of Trennis retreated from what they continued to be the hubris of the world, especially from the other elves, and retreated into the woods to have no more contact with them, in the hopes that one day the doors to the fields of Arborea would be again open to them.
Huh.
But all of this information is conveyed in song. It's a book of poetry. And did anybody else want books?
Zook wants to do kind of the same thing, but looking for gnomish books, talking about the gnomish history of Trennis, and maybe see if they have any different perspective on this time period.
You all get the sense that you're having a very difficult time articulating to Gurgrog what it is you want. You don't get what you want. You don't get a book of gnomish history. What you get is a book of schematics. Formulas. Things that the great gnome kingdoms used to build in Trennis. Mechanical devices, mechanical weaponry, things that you're not sure, even looking at this book, you could build with these instructions. A lot of them are incomplete. There are pages that have been torn out and attempted to repair. But it's definitely a gnomish script. A great gnome wrote this at one point, cataloging all of his event. Basically, you're looking at the Da Vinci Code for gnomes.
That's really cool.
Tarin, what did you want?
Tarin wanted to look at the oldest history books you could find on Trennis itself.
You're given a book of history written by one of the seneschals of one of the Witch Kings of Rhamneus. And it details trade that this particular king had with fire giants that lived in the desert, who in turn traded with Efreet and Deo that lived beyond the wall of fire that mortals were not able to tread. And it was with this trade that made the kingdom so rich. And looking at it again, you notice that you've mistranslated the word that would translate into fire giant, because you were expecting to read fire giant there. You expect to find fire giants that far out in Rhamneus, but you notice that the script doesn't form the words you thought it did. It's talking about a kind of giant that you've never heard of before. And flipping through the history, you find less and less solid mentions of these giants. And more you see the kingdoms of the Witch Kings collapse. As this trade is no longer facilitated. And then eventually, barbarians storm the walls. And that's the last pages of the book.
Rick, can I find anything in the book that I'm looking at detail enough that I would feel confident taking transcription of instructions to build a gnomish device?
That's a good question.
Not that I could build, but that if I ever encountered, say, a tinker gnome, that I could give to them.
Roll an investigation check.
Okay.
And then make just a straight up intelligence check. DC is 15 on both. Well.
That is a... Okay, well, I'm going to re-roll that first one.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the investigation check.
Well.
Are you effing kidding me?
Zook, you were flipping through this book, and you would
Hold on.
love...
No, that's the thing. I still actually get a 14 out of that.
I needed a 15.
Damn.
And
DC is 15.
you get giant
Wait.
paper cuts.
Wait. What did he roll first? 2 1s?
He's got
He
two.
rolled
Because he
a-
didn't replace his other one.
No.
Well, he can pick between those two ones, but he can't roll lucky again. Is what the problem is.
That's what I'm saying. What did he have before he rolled lucky the first one?
A 1.
I had a 1.
You rolled 3 1s in a row?
No, I rolled 2
He rolled
ones.
2
I wasn't
ones.
rolling at advantage. I rolled a 1, then I rolled
okay.
a second
Yeah.
1.
No, I get you. Okay. I got
I'm
thought you
still
rolled
waiting.
3 ones.
I'm still waiting to give you guys a roll at advantage where it's 2 1s. I think that's probably the closest that we'll get. Zook, you are all of the schematics here. I mean, you know that there are a race of gnomes called Tinker Gnomes that do this kind of thing, but you're a forest gnome. Your
Right.
people have never dealt with this kind of thing before. It clearly interests you, but it looks like it's so far beyond you. Like, it's talking about materials, but it isn't just talk in terms of what kind of stone. It's talking about like the chemical and geological makeup of stone, using a taxonomy that you're not familiar with.
All right, fair enough. Just you gave me an opening I wanted to try to exploit, but
Yeah.
I rolled ass.
You see the finished products of some of these devices that look like things that Zook would definitely like to have, but
Is there a self-loading crossbow in there?
there is, in fact. But you have no idea how to build it. And in fact, since you have never seen any of these devices used ever in your life, you get the sense that the knowledge to build these items has been lost. So you guys spend the next day just studying in Kefus's library?
Yeah, well, I wanted to. I wanted to see if there was a book anywhere about the other 2 figures of the Trinity.
I mean, Gurgrok gives you a book that talks about a mythological trilogy, but it's clearly talking about a religion that you didn't ask about. Talking about the trinity of some gods in some faraway kingdom. Like, she
I'll read
obviously
that.
didn't understand your request.
I will read
All
that.
right.
I'm
Okay.
a religious guy.
And they're talking about
Yeah,
gods.
You're
It's talking about a trinity of gods that was once very powerful in the days of the Witch Kings, but which nobody worships anymore.
It's because this is all blasphemous heretic garbage.
And he points over the gnome book and says, "That is too." You all are fed well, and I mean, there's not so much in the way of conversation companions, just hill giants around here. Does anybody poke around the hill giants? Does anybody do anything outside of the keep?
Anyone want to go look at them runes? No, nobody.
Well, when he told us to not go into the keep, he meant the underground areas, right?
He didn't say you couldn't. He cautioned you against it.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, if we're above ground, they know not to touch us.
Yes, he said he's extending his hospitality. He said to make yourselves at home. He told you no magic, and he said if you go underground, you do so at your own peril.
Okay, but not that these runes were above ground. Yeah, I'll look at them. I mean, I don't know what good I can do with them, but
I mean, they're just magic runes inscribed into the southern wall. And what we're talking about here is this wooden structure here is not a building.
Yeah.
This is like a lean-to. It's big enough for Kefus to stand under.
Oh wow, okay.
And the runes cover the wall. And it's written in giant script, but you have no idea what they say. And they glow. They're obviously magic of some kind.
long
We'll have
shot.
to take a rubbing.
Take a rubbing? Okay. Go ahead and add that to your inventory, I suppose. I mean, unless you're going to take a rubbing of the entire wall, which that would probably take days.
I need to fly up there,
Yeah.
which I can't do.
Yeah, I thought
No,
you
these-
of all people could fly without magic.
Non-magically, yeah.
I thought your wings themselves were magic.
No, they're not. They're just dragon wings.
Well, he can't, hover with them, is the problem. I mean, you can see up there. You don't have any problem seeing the runes. So to get the rubbing,
Yeah.
more practical would probably be to just draw them. Just to make a paper, one-sheet sized inscription of what the wall is saying. So if you want to copy down the runes that are on the wall onto a piece of parchment, that would be very easy to do. It would just take several hours. It would probably take you most of an afternoon to do it.
This book was pretty interesting. I'm actually curious if I could find anything more about that elvish hero that the elves say it's his fault that this didn't happen because
Okay.
he offended the gods. Because
Well-
to Elda's way of thinking, that that's probably not what happened, but this elf probably was involved in
The thing
whatever
is,
caused this
it was,
problem.
it was describing a myth that you were familiar with in a different way that you were familiar with it. Because, like I said, it didn't read like it was mythological. It read like it was contemporary. It read like somebody had seen this happen. So instead of kind of assuming that, oh, it's just a metaphor, it's just a story, it's been passed down, you actually get the opposite view. It feels like you're reading the original account of what then became a myth amongst the Sylvan Elves. And we're going back several thousand years. We're going back a couple generations of elves.
So would it be the equivalent of reading different versions of the flood myth, but this one is more like, yeah, shit actually flooded today?
It would be like
Well,
you
see,
seeing
yeah, that's what I'm
footage of
saying.
Noah being interviewed on Dateline.
Gotcha.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the difference between, like, in my mind, this dude did do this, and something happened, and then it stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
But was that because he offended a god? Like, that is what Eldove is more wary of.
The poem reads that he fell in love with the daughter of one of these elven gods and attempted to woo her into the land of mortals, and this angered the gods so much that they closed the doors to Arborea and did no longer allow the Sylvan Elves to traverse their paths.
Bunch of jerks.
Gods are
Jerks.
very easily jealous.
One
Yes,
elf
jerks.
has to go ruin it for the rest of us.
Oh, really?
But
Here's the thing, that explains why the doors to Arborea were closed. That doesn't explain why the doors to everywhere else were closed. Unless the elf gods are the only gods, which Eldove could be persuaded of.
well, the other thing Eldove would know is that from Trennis you can still get into the Feywild, and there's a strong connection between Sylvan creatures and the Feywilds. And that path is still there. Arborea to Eldove would be like the home of the gods. Like, this is a place that is only metaphorical. This is a place that, if you say, hey, I'm going to Arborea, that's, people assume you're speaking metaphorically. But yeah, what you have in this keep is a poem of one of the original accounts from that time. This is why the elves are no longer allowed to walk the fields of Arborea. So Arik and Zook, we're going down into the Hill Giant Pit.
No. We were just looking at the ruins, and it sounds like somebody is copying them down, so...
Yeah.
I want to go look at the art gallery.
Okay. Are you looking for anything in particular?
No, I just wanted to see what's on display.
And like I said, a lot of the art looks like murals that were painted on stone walls and then were brought here and put on display. Some of them very old. Some of them depict famous battles between dwarves and goblins. This is a mural of a dwarf and a dwarf. The dwarf is eating the dwarf. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. I just went to that
I know
place.
exactly why you said that.
Yeah, no, I got it. Reference to it.
The only thing that could be worse if it was a dwarf, and a cat.
Eldove. Not Eldove. I don't care about Eldove. Orphan. Make a perception check.
Okay.
How many hours are you spending inside the art gallery examining all the art? Is this like a full day project for you, or are you just going to be in and out?
Oh, let's say half day.
Half day, make it an advantage.
Oh, I had advantage. Okay.
Picturing, like, the British Museum, which has, like, entire walls that were ripped out of tombs.
What was this perception check you said?
Yeah, perception.
Okay, this is a 14 then? No, 13.
13?
Yeah.
One mural in particular catches your eye. It's one of these nondescript giant battles. Such and such army of dwarves and men are fighting off against an epic dragon. But what you notice is, looking at the dragon side of things, where goblins and orcs and whatnot have amassed, you see, painted far in the back, what looks to be a group of humanoid dragons. To your eyes, they look like Dragonborn. But you know that there are no Dragonborn in Trennis. The next morning, Kephas comes down the stairs. Unless anybody else had anything they wanted to get in trouble with.
Ah.
No.
Okay. And he summons you all back to his library. And he says, you have perused my books. You have taken a glance at some of the history that I hold in these walls. He says, surely your minds are bursting with questions now. He says, and hopefully you also have a deeper understanding of what I offer when I ask, what is your price? He says, so.
And Zook's just going to kind of look at Tarin and say, kind of like with a, should I say what I was thinking?
Tarin will nod.
And Zook will say, it's obvious that you have vast amounts of knowledge and material here, entirely too much for us to observe in just a few days. If we were to sell you these objects that are priceless, but also non-functional for us, we would most like access and to maybe to be able to continue using your resources and communicate with you as much as anything else. So some coin would be nice as well.
He looks at the rest of you and says, is that the price?
An orphan nods. This is the price, and she remembers it.
Yeah,
Eldove says that he's from this plane, so the price should be left up to those who aren't.
Mm-hmm. Arik gives a glance to those who aren't.
Yeah, Tarin agrees. Yeah.
Oh, but did we also want to ask for use of the device if it's ever complete and functioning?
Oh yeah. Sorry. And Zook says, and if you do manage to figure out a way to use the device, if you'd be so kind as to let us know, and perhaps let us use it as well.
So I am very busy here with my own research. He says it may be many lifetimes of gnomes before I get around to determining the use of this device.
Oh, and I completely understand that. But if you were so happen to stumble upon it within my comparatively brief lifespan, I would love to be able to access my former home. And likewise, if we somehow come across any more information about it, we would gladly share it with you.
So given that obviously time is a completely different thing to you than to us, what if we were to give these to you on something of a delay? I mean, for me, my own life, for you it would be nothing if I were to give this to you at the end of my life, rather than right now.
That's fair, but then payment would not be required on my part until the end of your life, correct?
Well, I mean, it might be worth having a collateral and a contract signed, and then you could retrieve it if someone else disagrees. I mean, you've seen how I live my life, or at least I assume you have some sort of idea. I think if someday I'm killed, whoever kills me is going to decide that they have the right to my stuff.
I think you have come to negotiate at my table as though I am one of the small races, and I am not.
Orphan nods.
Fair enough.
Fair
I'll
enough.
Look between yes. And I'll pull out stuff out of my coin pouch and put them back, and I'll see. Is he going to extend his hand, or?
There's a table where you all are sitting at.
Oh, okay.
He's not sitting at it. You're all sitting around.
Yeah.
He's sitting at a much larger chair across the room.
And I'll place them on the table.
He nods and says, I will make myself available to you all. So, what knowledge is it you wish for me to share with you?
Aaron?
Huh?
Well, he's already shown himself to have knowledge of things that are happening, so he probably has sources from other creatures.
Oh, yeah, the thing I
So
wanted
he
to
might have
ask-
heard about what the necromancer is up to at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll say that we're primarily right now interested in stopping the actions of a necromancer of the dead god Naruk, and that any information he has on this god or on his agents within this world would be tremendously valuable.
He says, I have not heard the name Naruk. I do not know this god you speak of. He says, but there are rumors in many of the kingdoms of the desert, especially along the coast. He says there is a cult there that is taken hold and is getting stronger by the day. He says, until now, the workings of this particular group of addle-minded people has not been worth my notice, but if you're asking me to find out for you as part of this payment,
Turn. We'll look at the rest of the group and then nod.
says, I don't feel comfortable taking this item from you unless I impart something you can use today.
Sorry, say that again?
He says he's not comfortable taking the item that you're selling him in exchange for knowledge on the cult, which he doesn't have yet.
Okay.
He doesn't want you guys to leave this room without something very useful in exchange for this item. The price was that he would make his library and his knowledge and himself available to you and open lines of communication in exchange for the item.
Yeah.
In exchange for the compass and the emerald.
Right. So is he saying he wants to give us some information today?
Yeah, he wants you guys to take something today. He doesn't want he doesn't want to just leave it. All right, well, if you find anything about the cult, let us know.
Okay, well then Zook will follow up and say, we have reason to believe that we're not the only, people from other planes in this world, and that these other people are the targets of the necromancer. Are you aware of anyone else not from Trinus that we should be in contact with?
He says, oh yes, I can put you in contact with several such people. He begins to describe the monastery as Razak, not knowing that you all have been there.
Okay, and I think Zook would say we've met. What's the guy's name?
Started with
we've got the Sarah.
Fairdak, yes.
Yeah. We've actually met with Fairdak, so we know him.
The rest of the beings you're talking about. He says many of them are travelers, many of them are dead now, many of them I don't have a way to contact them. Travelers from other worlds have a way of finding their ways into my halls now and then. He says, I do know of one. It would be difficult to get word to him. But if you name a time and a place, I can ensure that he's there.
Can you tell us
in 1 month at the market?
What did he say?
Oh, I'm asking this to the group. They think that's a good idea.
If you'd be willing to meet in public like that. I don't know the nature of this person yet.
Kefos shakes his head. Says, this is not a person who will show his face in the public realm. Says, you'll meet him in shadows, behind a locked door.
Should we invite him to the inn?
That's how we meet half the people we meet.
I was gonna say, well, can I ask his name? It's possible I've met many people in shadows behind locked doors. It's possible I've made his acquaintance.
He says, if you knew his name, you could summon him yourself.
Well, fair enough. Would have been immediately apparent that he was not from this world. What I'm gathering.
He says, and I'm not altogether certain that meeting this, we'll say, person would be advantageous for any of you. He says, but I happen to know that he has great interest of leaving this place, by which I mean Trinus. He's trapped here too, like you are.
Can you give us any information on him, or do we just need to arrange to meet him?
Kefos leans back in his chair, as if he's lost in thought for a moment. And he says, if you were to meet this individual in any place other than a specific situation that you have arranged, if you were to walk into him on the streets, in a dungeon, in a desert, if you were to see him in any circumstance outside of one arranged for the specific meaning, or for the specific purpose of meeting with him, and he were to show you his true form, you would consider him an enemy and attempt to kill him on sight. And you would lose.
Is that true of anyone we've met?
Would he be would he be willing to meet at your hall, or would it need to be more secluded than that?
I would not invite him to my hall.
Okay.
But he has a great interest in leaving the world, and he is possibly the most powerful extraplanar entity that I've met.
If we arrange to meet him, given the information that we have, would we be safe?
Depends on what you're meeting him for. I can facilitate getting you into a great many places, Zook, but, like I said, with the caves of my hill giants, some of these places you enter at your own peril.
Fair enough, fair
Well,
enough.
I think, given the Necromancer's plans, we're mostly worried about people that can't take care of themselves. I think this individual probably doesn't need any specific warning.
Yeah.
Why would we consider someone we haven't met our enemy?
It could be an extremely evil person.
Kifas says, you are a man of the cloth. You service one of the many smaller gods, yes?
I nod. Bristling at the idea of Osprey being a smaller god, but I nod.
He says, describe to me some of the creatures you've slain in your travels. Describe to me the feeling that they gave you, even in my own desert with the gnolls. He says, you saw the gnolls from your camp. You did not send an emissary out to treat with them. Is that true?
It's true.
And why didn't you? Why didn't you assume these gnolls were people that could be reasoned with, or people that had something you wanted? People that could be dealt with in a civilized way? Why did you meet them with blade and arrow?
Because they attacked us. They assaulted us.
And why did
were
they
evil
attack and
creatures.
assault you? Because they're evil creatures. Because they're gnolls. Such is it with my contacts. So understand, this is an individual that I have no dealings with anymore. All I would be doing is putting you at the table with him. What you do from there is up to you.
Oh, again, we're largely interested in people that might get themselves killed and thus fulfill the Necromancer's plan, so I'm not too worried about this one.
No.
Do you know of anyone else?
He may
Anyone less
very well
capable?
get himself killed.
If you don't mind me asking, how long's he been on Trennis?
He stops to think. Then he responds, I think the walls of Kiska had gone up.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Do we want to put a pin in this and tell them that we'll arrange a contact at a later date?
We need to do something about this
Can we-
wizard.
Can we ask him, does he know about Gendred?
He says, I know the
Oh,
name,
Oh.
but only in reference to the rumors of a cult that has sprung up on the shores. He says, you understand I haven't bent any resources into learning anything about this cult. Cults rise and fall. Religions rise and fall. Very little of it is of any concern to me.
It seems like that, rather than the location of his supposed targets. Why don't we dedicate ourselves to finding the perpetrator?
Yeah, I think looking into this cult is our best option
Yeah,
at this
well,
point.
no, the thing is that Kefis wants us to get something from him right now, and he said in the future he might be able to look for it, but
Okay, he'll
But he's
definitely be
not
able to
actually
look
done
into the
anything.
cult for you.
yeah, but we have
Maybe ask him if he has anything that we could use to find this cult for ourselves.
Yeah, we could do that if he has anything that'd be useful for us in our. Since he knows the nature of our travels and our mission, if he has anything that he think would be of use to us.
Everyone roll a
material.
whiz 10. Everybody roll a whiz 10. And I hope one of you rolls above a 10. I don't think Zook can roll below a 10. Oh, it's not a skill check, though.
It's
just
not a
ability
skill
check.
thing, so yeah, I can totally roll below a 10.
Tarin made it. Go Tarin.
what my wisdom modifier even is at this point. Oh, it's +2. Yeah, I made it.
I made it.
Everybody who made the check, you know you have a former initiate of this cult serving on your ship.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a feeling that's where this was going.
I'll ask him about the rumors that Eldove and I and who else came along? Was Tarin there when we made our little trip into the Underdark?
Yeah.
He says everything, all the knowledge that I would have of that part of the world would come second hand through my contacts among the stone giants. He says, from what I understand, one of the Illithid kings has grown vastly in power and marshaled an army the likes that the Underdark has not seen for generations. However, the size of this army is still no match for the many dwarves and gnomes who live closer to the surface, and I understand they've begun to enlist aid of those on the surface. So I think this will be a very bloody battle, and I believe in the end the dwarves will win, the Illithids will be smashed across the Underdark, and none of the small races need worry about them any longer.
Sounds good.
Right. Continue ignoring the mind flare situation. Yep. Gotcha.
That's what I'm hearing. Yep.
Do not worry about the mind flayers.
Yeah, so we know we have a member of this cult on our boat, but he obviously hasn't been in contact with them for some time. I wonder if we can leverage that somehow.
We can leverage it into finding out where they are and then fireballing them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Sounds good.
Is he still indicating that he wants us to get more information, or does he feel like he's satisfied that?
He's satisfied because he's in possession of the item. From here, it's all up to what you guys want from him. You guys bartered him being at your disposal when it comes to him sharing knowledge and information that he's amassed in his keep. That was my understanding of the deal. So, I mean, he extends his hospitality of the keep to you. You're friends within the walls, as long as you don't raise arms against him.
Mm-hmm.
Can we, how would you like us to contact him away from the keep? Just through sending magic? Would that be fair?
Because that's how I would contact him. Yes, I would tell him there are a group of people from other planes who are actively searching for ways to exit this one, and that would interest him greatly.
No. I was asking, when we leave the keep, can we continue contacting Kifos?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And does he have any agents that we should contact for, like, trivial things that aren't worth bothering him about?
Probably not agents, but contacts. He can give you the names of some people around the world that he does some dealings with, where messages could be left or whatnot. Obviously, he's not going to leave the keep and stomp across the desert and look into this cult himself, if that's what you're asking.
Right.
No, what I'm saying is, if us being able to get in touch with his fucking network sounds really valuable.
No, and Kifos tells you that he doesn't have disdain or contempt for the small races. They're useful in their own way. They're very useful to me. They've been invaluable to me. They're just small.
It was more of a curiosity than anything else, but we noticed in your vast hospitality that you had, that you served us some delicious fresh fruits and other things that I was surprised to get in the middle of the desert. Do you mind if I ask how you acquire these items?
Magic.
Eldove's face is like,
That's the answer he gives. Magic.
Oh, just that. Okay, fair enough.
I'll ask the same. Is that the same as goes for the folded stones we've seen outside? I was curious about those first trip into the desert.
When you mention the rolled up stones, you notice that the amusement in his face kind of drains away a little bit, and he sighs very heavily. Says, gather your belongings, and in 2 hours meet me outside the wall of fog. And then he stands and takes his giant strides out of the room.
Eldove looks at everyone else and says, "Does anyone have any belongings?"
I mean,
Not that I don't have my bag.
yeah, I mean, just our bags and stuff. So,
Back.
which yeah, let's go.
Oh, what have I missed?
So Orphan brought up the rolled up stones, and he kind of got upset. Not like mad, but like sighed and said, "Meet me outside."
All
These
right.
are going to be baby giants or something.
In a couple of hours, this is just after the sun has started to set. You meet him outside the drawbridge. And outside the wall of fog, I mean, he's got just his entire, what would, I guess, constitute his front yard is just filled with these boulders. He says, in nobler times, in the times of the ones that you would call the Witch Kings, each of these stones was one of my brothers. An entire race of what the small races called desert giants. They were smaller than I am, but much larger than any of the small races. He says they had dealings with the genies and the fire giants beyond the wall, but they were cursed. He walks over to one of the boulders in particular, and he lays his hand on it, like very tenderly. He says, over the centuries, each of these giants turned to stone, and now they are no more. As I work here tirelessly to understand the nature of this curse, to find a way to reverse it, and return the glory of the old days of Romneus to this desert. This is a job
What
that
have
I've
you
been
learned
doing
so
for.
far?
What have I learned so far? And he smiles, chuckles a little bit, says, I've learned that the mighty race of desert giants has turned to stone.
Why are the we saw some of the hill giants pushing these around? Were they just gathering them from across the desert and bringing them to you?
Yes. I employ the hill giants. I purchase them for goods and favors from one of their kings in Tetlateus. They are not comfortable here, I assure you. I can get as many of them as I need for as long as I need, however many of them die under toil or adventurers. He says, and their task is to comb the whole desert and roll as many of our brethren back to me as they can. And you see hundreds of these boulders now that you're this close to the keep. They are very, very packed, very close in.
Eldove says, I assume you've identified the curse that was cast on them.
He says, you assume incorrectly.
Would you like me to attempt to identify it?
And he does. He laughs. And he says, please, let's let the mighty half-elf solve the puzzle. And he steps aside. He motions to the boulder that he was standing at.
No, that's what I was saying. Like, I was saying, I assume you've tried to cast it.
Because I've tried a great many things over the several hundred years I've been appointed to this task. And I imagine it will be several hundred more before I make much headway. But I am patient.
Well, if we
And here I didn't prepare remove curse.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Gonna cast Remove Curse?
No, I didn't prepare it. I can't.
Oh.
I can't cast it.
I imagine he's tried that as well.
Do you say that to him? Arik, do you tell him that you don't have Remove Curse prepared?
Yeah. Why not?
He tells you, a couple hundred years ago, he at great expense, he had one of the high priests of Kiska. They pray to the Egyptian pantheon. Says, and 9 of these priests surrounded one of my brothers, one of the boulders here. And for 9 days they cast their ritual and expended the magic of their gods into it. And for 9 minutes the boulder came to life again, and it was terrified. It was a desert giant. The only time we've heard their language. And 9 minutes later, he returned to stone.
Weird.
As I take it, none of you have gone poking around inside of my barn.
No, we felt we were best not to go poking around too much.
That's a wise decision on your part. For one of the corners of my barn, I keep a nest of cockatrices. This is my current study. My current research involves creatures that can turn you to stone. The cockatrices I'm breeding for now are the first leg of that research. I'm currently underway collecting monsters from other parts of the world, far more dangerous monsters. He says, I have a company of stone giants who say they can capture a live beholder for me from the Underdark.
Tarin's eyes bulge out of his head.
Zook mentions that last year they helped purify a poison forest, and amongst the things that were changed after they were done was a petrified tree that was connected somehow to the curse. And he wasn't sure if there was any way that would be useful to him.
He says, yes, my friend, why do you think I was at Zrazak? I investigated the same wood that you speak of years ago. It was fruitless. He doesn't mean like the wood was fruitless. I mean, obviously there was no wood there was no fruit in the poison wood. He's saying his investigation was fruitless.
But it was poison fruit.
It would have been poison fruit, right?
And Zook nods and says, "It makes sense. You would have gone down that route. I just wanted to make sure we covered all our bases."
But there's good news for you all. In your war against the Eudachs. This is once I've solved the puzzle and I know how to remove the curse, I will no longer need my keep here. My research will be complete and I'll be able to move on, and at that point, I will be able to bring down my wall of fog. The reservoir deep beneath the desert would dry up without the magical protections I have in place, and so the Eudachs themselves would be out of business, so to speak. But I don't foresee this happening for several more generations.
Speaking of the magical water, and this is just more of my curiosity, they have a mound that appears to be the source of the water that they are protecting, but it sounds like they don't understand the nature of it at all. As far as they're concerned, they claimed it manifests as a spring.
He turns around and motions back to his wall of fog that you see roiling some 50 feet above the sand. He says, the spell that keeps my fog wall in place, that keeps the climate in my keep temperate and comfortable, that deters invading armies that see a dangerous mirage on the horizon, requires a great quantity of running water deep underground. So when I established myself here, hundreds of years ago, I created the spring that the Eudach's village sits atop now. It has many underground rivers that run away from it, one of which moves underneath my keep here and generates this wall of fog. One of the rivers fought its way above ground and creates the river that you know that runs down to the sea. And this is what the Eudachs have taken control of.
And the main river that flows down that the Eudachs are on comes from there. What other water sources are connected to that, or is that the main one?
You already know. Well, first of all, it's not the main one. He says it's one of the smaller ones that's above ground.
The smaller ones.
Most of the larger rivers are all deep underground. Having been to Eudach's village, you would know the answer to that. The spring feeds the river and doesn't connect to any other water sources.
Right. Okay. Just make sure it's not gonna, I don't know, cause anything horrific to happen somewhere else in the world other than that particular water source. But it just sounds like he's not super close to moving on at this point, anyhow.
No, it's going to be quite a while.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone have anything else to ask of our giant friend here?
Orphan looks up a little sheepishly and says, "This might be a little bit beneath your notice. I know that you don't pay much attention to the dealings of the small races. But you've never heard of a woman called Olivia of the Blue Eyes, have you?
And he says, I have not.
She nods. Had to ask.
And then he invites you all back inside.
Oh, okay.
He says, I've hired adventurers of your like before. So I hired one such team to secure for me a pair of gorgons. They haven't returned. I assume they've been killed.
How long ago was this?
Thinks about it. 1 or 2 years, perhaps.
Oh, okay. I thought he was going to say like 200 years or something ridiculous.
They're probably as interested in you are as in a way of reversing petrification.
Kefos nods and says, I imagine they would be.
When you were at when you were in the mountains and exploring the petrified tree, did you also see the petrified adventurers that were there? Were they there at that time?
He says, well, you understand I was not able to enter the forest directly.
To be honest, I was not aware of. I wasn't sure what your powers would be if the toxic force would have affected you as well or not.
He says, it's my
Or
understanding...
if you know polymorph.
which he probably does. But no, he had underlings actually go into the woods, and they didn't go all the way to the core like you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
They observed petrified statues, but that they weren't concerned about them. And he says that one of them made contact with a sleeping spirit inside of the petrified tree, but were unable to do more than that. None of them found the source of the rot or anything of that nature.
Oh,
Well, don't worry, we took care of that.
I might have something that's somewhat valuable to your research. And Tarin will fish through his pack and take out the last remaining petrification grenade he has. I'm not sure if this is something already known to you, but the liquid inside this causes a short-term petrification. I've never seen the like of it. And I'll put it on the table.
And he says, oh, I have a book in my library that explains how to build these weapons.
Ooh.
He says, but it's odd how you came across this. It's like, where did you find this?
I'll tell him a wizard's tower in
Wizard did it.
Yeah, we don't
Did
actually
you
know
say
the
a wizard
wizard's
did it?
name.
I've never named this NPC, and I'm never going to.
The
The
wizard
tower
did
of some unknown wizard that we was overrun by goblins.
it.
And
Goblins, Arik peppers in.
he takes much joy in hearing the story. Does anybody tell him about Cube?
Yeah. Orphan
Yes. I don't know why we wouldn't or why we would at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, are we
Yeah.
offering this information? Like, hey, also, by the way, do you want to know about our cube friend? Like,
Well, it just comes up during the course of the story.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cube was instrumental
it
in the
would
whole
have-
Wizard's
yeah.
Tower.
Yeah, if we are talking about the Wizard's Tower, I guess we would bring
Yeah.
up Cube.
Yeah. Mentioned we found him and he took us to the tower, but we never actually saw the wizard.
And Kefos looks very interested in mention of Cube, and he asks a couple of probing questions, but he leaves it at that.
No, his name is Cube.
Yeah.
Because
his
we
name's
called
Cube.
it. Because he's shaped like a cube.
his name is Cube because he's Cube. That's his name. He's Cube.
It's short for multifaceted dodecahedron.
So the goal is to leave lines of communication open with Kefos as you guys see fit later in the campaign, yes?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one other thing. Does he, see here 1 second.
We were like Columbo with this guy. I love it.
Are we asking
Well,
for
like,
any
you-
money? Because, like,
Oh, you know what? I had mentioned, and it kind of got glossed
Yeah.
over that we wanted communication and coin, but it kind of got glossed over without setting an amount before we got into talking about the
right.
I'll ask him if he has anyone more suited to aiding in the library than Gurgurmog, if we were interested in doing some more independent research.
He shakes his head. Says, I have what I have to work with.
If we wanted to do our own research in there, would he be? I know he didn't want us to use magic in the keep before, but would he be willing to let us use telekinesis to move books around if we wanted to do independent research, or is that still verboten?
He says that's acceptable.
Okay.
Do you have an index?
A card catalog.
And he says yes,
Yeah.
and he points to his head.
Oh,
Now you have to ask if you can use detect thoughts to read your index.
No.
Do you guys ask him for anything in the way of assistance against the Eudachs?
I think we can handle Eudach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm scared of unleashing, like Tarin said was a good point. If
Yeah.
we ask for hill giants, they're liable to just smash and tear everything.
yeah, we had some discussion about this. I think when you were gone for a minute,
Okay.
and we decided not to.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
mostly
you
we were
all-
just trying to get information from him about the people who. Did we ask him specifically about the Silver Eye at any point?
You did not.
He told us they were spellcasters, but I don't know that he
Yeah.
actually.
Do you know how many there are and what their capabilities are?
He says the Silver Eye, as I understand it, are a mercenary company that is actually 3 smaller companies. As to their number, I couldn't say. If I had to guess, a typical company of mercenaries in the desert taking on the kind of jobs that they took, perhaps 20 or 30 people, multiply that by 3, that would be the total size of the company. He says that in several of the kingdoms in the desert, at least one elven kingdom I know of, merchants, and perhaps Kiska as well, he says merchants don't have... They have let's call it a gentleman's agreement not to hire this particular company. Their reputation is bad. I know that on the side, when they're not hiring themselves out for protection, they work as marauders. They attack smaller companies, caravans, elven village settlements, and they use the wealth that they amass and funnel it into magical constructs. This they do by leveraging the shadier aspects of the elven kingdoms, the Kiskin black market, things of that nature. So as to their actual capabilities, I could not say. But do not underestimate them. If you absolutely have to meet this company on the field of battle, do better than the 5 of you rolling up on giant lizards.
Do you know anything of their power structure, or if they have a leader?
Not personally, but I can give you their names. Someone more knowledgeable than me on the subject may be able to impart the wisdom to you. Their leader, that as I understand it, is a man named Buazum. They call him Silver Eye because he has a silver eye.
That seems reasonable to Eldove.
Says Buazum has 2 children. The first is named Sabit. They call her Sabit Empty Hearts. You can only imagine why they would call her that. They say that she is the most cruel mercenary to lead a company in the desert. They say that she's never shown mercy or quarter, and that she may not know what the words mean. Understand that this is a very grave person we're discussing. A mercenary is someone who sells their skills in swordplay or magic for money. This is a woman who would turn down the money for the opportunity to be cruel. He says Buazum also has a son called Palusum Horse Eater. I don't know why they call him that. I can only imagine it's because he eats horses.
All right, so it's Magic Genghis Khan we're going up against. Gotcha.
He says Sabit and Palusum both have their own companies aside from their fathers. For the 3 of them to come together at once would be unprecedented within a human lifetime. So they're not the greatest band of mercenaries I've heard of roaming the desert, but they're probably the greatest band that anybody in Kiska has heard of. He says, it's my understanding that all 3 of them are currently at the village.
So wait, what are the race of these people? Because they said it was unheard of within a human lifetime.
They're humans. They came to power. It's difficult for Kifas to tell you exactly how, because he doesn't really have a concept of how long human lifetimes are. But they would have had to come to power within one human lifetime, within the past 30 or 40 years.
I think his point is just these are the baddest mercenaries anybody can remember.
All right, let's roll them.
This sounds a bit stronger than maybe
Than the
we were
serpents.
prepared for.
So I'll give you one other name.
We have 2 giant lizards. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give you one other name that perhaps could be of use to you. Someone you may have heard of. Her name is the Daughter. She leads the Sanguine Serpents, and she departed the Eudach's employ shortly after your last visit. I wonder why.
Daughter? Do you
The
know
daughter.
her? Do you know her actual name?
She doesn't have
No,
one.
but we've heard of her before.
Yeah, the Daughter
Alright.
was the leader of the company that was there when you guys were there last year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She has that. She has that
Remember,
all
we killed
female
her.
group.
We killed her sergeant.
Right, you killed
Yeah,
one
we
of her
killed
sergeants.
one of the big 3.
And the other one, and one of the big 3 was actually a Shadow Guild plant. So
So she's not doing too great company wise.
Does she? And I'll ask him if he thinks she has any sort of grudge or reason against the Silver Eye.
he says, "I don't know. You'd have to ask her."
Do you know where we can find her?
He rattles off the name of an Elvis. An Elvis. Yes, Elvis is back, and he's in my game. No, he rattles off the name of an elven oasis village, very
Perhaps
far
banana,
out in the
right?
desert.
Where's my banana?
And he says this village is a place that human merchants looking to do business with elves that live deeper in the desert, they congregate at this oasis to hire on mercenary companies. So this would be a good place to look for word of the Sanguine Serpents.
How many days travel from here is that oasis?
A couple weeks.
Well, we have a sledge.
Yeah. Well.
Or we could pay someone to go there and get us something from there.
It's not gonna make it faster.
It won't be faster, but it means we don't have to waste our time.
We can hang out in the demi-plane.
You guys can hang out at Kefos's Keep. He's giving you hospitality here.
Is Keep Foss?
Yeah, that was bad. That was bad. I'm
That was-
sorry.
No, that was
pretty bad.
fantastic.
I'm okay going to the oasis to see if we can hire some mercenaries.
Yeah, let's head on.
That sounds
down.
like a good plan.
Now, here's how this is going to work. If you guys go to Eudach's village right now, you will lose the fight. It will
That's
not be
kinda
much.
what I was
It
gathering.
will not be much of a fight. I have a list here of what I've titled potentially helpful NPCs, people who, and I'm not going to just run down the list, but it includes a lot of people that you had dealings with in the village or who were otherwise associated with it. We're going to take a break because my wife just walked in the door. Hopefully she has Pepsi in, because if she doesn't have Pepsi, I'm going to die.
Mhm.
And I'm going to see what my dinner is going to look like tonight. So what I want everybody to think of during the break, this would be a great time for everybody to go make a sandwich. Think about who in Eudach's village might be helpful to you, or who outside of the village who's associated with it might be helpful to you. As far as I'm concerned, everybody on this list here is a possible sending target.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Brick,
Yeah.
I know you're a Pepsi fan, right?
Yeah, I am.
But here's my counter argument.
Okay.
I have a case of Coca-Colas, which on the side of them say, share a Coke with an adventurer.
Okay.
And that
Listen,
seems like the correct drink to drink during a D&D campaign.
right now I am so desperate for a sweet carbonated beverage that I would drink a Coke and drink it gladly.
Ooh.
But yes, I'm going to go ahead and put Elizabeth on screen. I want to thank everybody for coming out to watch. This is just going to be a short break, hopefully only about 20 minutes. Give everybody a chance to make a sandwich, refresh your drink. Where's Elizabeth? I'm stalling now because I can't find Elizabeth. There she is. Dink.